Overall, life is pretty good. But certainly there are days that suck. 2013's had way too many of those days that suck, unfortunately. I think the first thing that happened this year was my 10-and-a-half-year-old Labrador Retriever, Viking Fran Tarkenton, died. He was a great pet, a terrific hunter, and a hard competitor. He ran in competitions, he helped me hunt birds, and he just kept me company around the house. My brother Dave and his family lost their Labrador, Guzman. My mother and the rest of the family lost my Aunt Joey. My mother's longtime boyfriend of about 8 years, Jim Van Valkenburg, died 2 weeks ago. I'm hoping the rest of the year has more of those good days and fewer of those days that suck. I'm in the middle of producing my first video that's going to come out shortly, and I hope you look forward to it. The working title is End the Violence. It's talking about violence in America and things that you can do to reduce violence in your own neighborhood. Things you can do to make our society more friendly. I want to give my compliments to the Edina Police Department. We've had 3 dealings with them this year. The first one, I shouldn't just say the police department, but also the medical responders. The first one was actually when my mother had some medical issues and we called 911. They got quickly to the house, treated her very gently and with a great deal of compassion, got her over to the hospital where she spent about a week before she came home. She's doing great now. She's walking over 8,000 steps a day again. Not bad for 87 years old. We had dealings with them, of course, when Jim died. Jim didn't come to dinner one night, and they've had dinner together for 8 years, virtually every night. When he didn't come, Mom got worried and called the neighbor, who found that he had passed away in his home. We dealt with the police that night. And then last night, when it was still early, broad daylight, I was over at Mom's house. We heard the front door open and close. I called out, "Who's there? Who is it?" And somebody, a woman's voice, responded. I thought it was one of my sisters or my daughter-in-law. And we walked out there and there was nobody in the living room or kitchen. I looked and the sliding glass door was open. Maybe a little nervous. We looked around a little bit more. I quickly told Mom, close the door and bar it. And I ran over to my house. I looked outside and there was a woman running across my backyard. I quick ran outside. I stopped her. I grabbed my phone and called 911. Told them we needed the police immediately, that we had somebody that was illegal in Mom's home, and that I had them there and was holding them for the police. I forced her to sit into a chair, and she made a phone call while she was there. She called a friend and asked him to come and pick her up. At the time, it didn't dawn on me that it was a little strange that he might even know where to pick her up. The police got there probably within 2 minutes. One of the officers came in through my house. The woman tried to get away. He kind of grabbed her, told her to put her hands behind her back. She resisted him. She fought actually very hard. He had a little difficulty getting her cuffed. He ended up taking her to the ground. When the second police officer arrived in the backyard, the two of them held her down and finally got the 2 cuffs on her. She did at that point finally calm down a little bit. She claimed she didn't do anything wrong. While she was fighting the officer, she said, "I'm not fighting you, I'm doing whatever you asked me to do." Well, in fact, she was fighting him a great deal. He had a great deal of difficulty. I was amazed at the restraint that the officer had in not doing something that might have caused her some form of injury, because she was fighting him rather hard and trying to kick him and swearing at him and so on. But my compliments to the police. It turns out there was a warrant for her arrest. She had a pillowcase with her that had several gold rings, a large amount of cash, a few cell phones, and a little bit of paperwork that evidently had her name and address on it. When they pulled it out and they said what the address was, I was shocked. It was the address immediately behind my home. As soon as I knew that, I knew who her boyfriend was. It's somebody I've talked to a number of times through the past few years. Always seemed like a good guy to me. I gave my statement. They were doing paperwork out in front and going through the inventory of the things that she had in her pillowcase. And when I went back out remembering a fact for the police in their report, I noticed that the boyfriend was gone. It turned out he was in one of the other cars. Now, I don't know if he was in on the attempted robbery. I don't know if it was something that he was involved in, but I do know they had him in the car. Kind of shocking to think it's that close in your own neighborhood. In my video, End the Violence, I have a segment where I talk about violence in your neighborhood, crime in your neighborhood. One of the things that I say in that is something I've talked about for years, and that is if you have crime in your neighborhood and you don't help the police to solve these crimes, then you have no right to complain about the police not doing anything to reduce the crime. I'm not suggesting that you should use physical restraint on somebody that's committing a crime as I did last night, but I am suggesting that you ought to give whatever evidence you have to the police to help them reduce the crime. Otherwise, you have no right to complain. Well, I hope 2013, the rest of 2013 goes a lot better in that respect. I hope we have less violence. I hope we have less interaction with the police, because I hope we have fewer emergencies. Again, I compliment the police and first responders for their rapid and their compassionate response and help. I hope you look forward to the video when it comes out, and I hope you do like and subscribe to us. Until that video comes out, remember, it's not brain surgery. It's third grade logic.